You're still watching Your Story on the SABC News Channel. Now, speculation is rife ahead of the Democratic Alliance's Federal Council this weekend.
It is expected to elect a new chairperson and also to discuss the organizational review panel report ahead of the 2021 local government elections. Abongile Dumako spoke to the former Federal Council chairperson, Gibson.
Well, certainly a lot of anticipation ahead of the Federal Executive Council meeting that is actually expected to take place this coming weekend. The Democratic Alliance expected to come out of that meeting this coming Sunday with a new federal chairperson. And of course, to help us expand and actually tell us what some of the things that we should be on the lookout for, we are joined by the former chairperson of the Federal Council of the DA and of former Chief Whip in Parliament, Mr. Gibson. Sir, good afternoon and thank you so much for your time. A lot of anticipation ahead of what's to take place this weekend in the FedEx.
Yes, I think it's quite right to anticipate good things and big things because it's an important election. But it's also important not to exaggerate the post itself. If anybody knows that position, it's me, because I served for a number of years as chairperson of the Federal Council, and James Self succeeded me. He was my deputy chair, and he's been there for 19 years. Now, James Self yesterday described the position as the toilet cleaner of the DA. In other words, he's the one who cleans up all the mess and deals with all the technocratic issues. And that's exactly what the position is. The leader remains the leader, and the chairperson of the Federal Council is the one who gives effect in the party organisation to the decisions of the Federal Council, Federal Executive and the leader. So it's a very important position, but the person must be on the same wavelength as the leader. It's impossible if the Chief Whip, the leader and the Chairman of the Federal Council are not on the same wavelength. And that, to my mind, rules out at least one of the aspirant candidates. That's Mike Waters, whom I've known since he was in our youth movement. Good chap, great MP, done very good work, committed to the party, but he's on public record as being opposed to Musi Maimane. So I think that rules him out.
And of course, if we look at the other two contenders, Helen Zille and of course Athol Trollip, and what you just said, looking at the caliber that of the person that has to occupy the post is concerned, what do you think of the two? I mean, what are the repercussions there, either if Athol Trollip takes it or Helen Zille?
I think that you've forgotten that there's a third one. That's Thomas Walters, who's James's vice chairman at the moment. Thomas would be a safe choice. I think that against star quality candidates like Helen and Athol, I don't think he's going to be elected. But if he was, he would do a good job. Now let's look at the other two. I've known Helen since she was 23 years old, when she was a young reporter in the gallery in the Transvaal Provincial Council. And I supported her before, during and after her leadership. She's got all the brains in the world, she's got a huge work ethic, and she's got great political experience. I query whether it's possible for somebody who's been the leader not to be the boss. Is she prepared to play second fiddle under the leader, or is she in effect going to be the leader in disguise? So that's a serious consideration. As far as Athol is concerned, he's proved his maturity in the mayoralty, very difficult situation in Nelson Mandela Bay. When he was thrown out, he didn't go into a sulk, he carried on working. And he's got a huge commitment to the party. He's very experienced as a politician, and I think the thing that counts the most in his favour is that he and Musi Maimane are close. They're close friends, and I think that's an important attribute that he has.
Both Musi Maimane and of course Helen Zille have come out in public saying that they wouldn't have a problem working alongside each other, but you've been emphasizing the fact that if one is a federal chair, they will have to work hand in hand with the leader. And of course, you've actually alluded to the fact that Helen Zille has been the former leader and all those aspects. But really, can we buy what they are saying, both Maimane and Zille, as far as working together is concerned, if Helen Zille gets elected into the position?
They're politicians. They both tell the truth all the time. I believe that Helen would try her very best to work together with Musi, and he would try his best to work with her. The people in the DA are Democrats, and when the electorate has spoken, then we all fall in line, and the person who's elected deserves and is entitled to demand the support of the whole party. So I think it might be easier than one thinks. I also think, though, that it's extremely important that this period of turbulence in the DA should be put behind us. If South Africa is to become a successful constitutional democracy, it needs a government that knows what it's doing, and it needs an effective opposition. The ANC doesn't need to be opposed by a whole collection of little parties, none of whom can challenge it for power at national, provincial or local government level. So South Africa actually can't do without a big centrist party like the DA.
Looking at the other aspects, in as far as this weekend's meeting is concerned, we also understand that the organizational review report is going to be discussed today. We also heard that it recommended actually that Ms. Maimane step aside, and of course the CEO of the DA also. The CEO, one can say, has sort of heeded the call, as we understand that he's since resigned yesterday. Where does that leave Musi? Do you think he's pressured now to really sort of move away?
No, I think there's less pressure on him. The CEO has fallen on his sword, and he did so very honourably, saying really nice things about Musi and about the party and the mission and the vision of the party. So he certainly hasn't fouled the nest at all. That's Paul Bowie, and I think one must be grateful to him for that. As far as Musi is concerned, I don't believe for 1 minute that he's likely to step down. He was elected by a Congress of several thousand people of the party, and he's not simply going to step aside.
But the argument is that the support base of the party has actually gone down since he took over compared to the numbers that you enjoyed during the Helen Zille time.
Well, up to a point, but remember that during Musi Maimane's leadership, we also had a high point in 2016 when we did remarkably well in the local government election. So he was the leader there as well. And you can exaggerate the fall off of support. I mean, no party likes to lose support. The DA lost, was at 5 seats in the election out of nearly 100. Well, the ANC lost, was at 17 or 19 seats, and I haven't noticed that anybody said that Cyril should step down and take responsibility for it. So, one can make too much of it. But it is a fact that there's been a period of turbulence. It is a fact that there's been some drop-off of support, and it's extremely important that be brought to an end and the party get back on track towards its winning ways.
Are you adamant that after all the trials and tribulations that the party has gone through, come Sunday, everything will sort of be, shall I say, back to normal, and then they're able to move on heading to 2021? Well,
I'm hoping so. Any political party that's bigger than a cocktail party has different interests and different groupings. The DA is unique in South Africa in that it straddles the divide between the languages, the colours, the cultures, the races. It's the only one that seeks now to represent everybody under the terms and provisions of the Constitution. The ANC no longer represents the overall South Africa. You have a look at the cabinet. You have a look at the provincial executive committees. You look at their mayors. You look at their premiers. You look everywhere. There's hardly a white face to be seen. So they can't even pretend that they try. Whereas you go into Parliament and you have a look at the DA, it certainly is diverse. It might not be as diverse as some people would like it, but it's quite obvious that it seeks to represent everybody in South Africa so that voters can look and say, that one looks like me.
Now, The weekend, much anticipated. Actually, you did warn me not to exaggerate about what to anticipate, but your main message to those delegates that are going to be electing the new chair.
Do what the Democratic Alliance has always done, and that is look to the greater interests of South Africa. And instead of thinking about factions and thinking about labels and who's a classical liberal and who's not a classical liberal, focus on what the party stands for and what it should be standing for. And if you do that, you'll find that there is increased support around the country for the party. I'm always upbeat about the future. I would never have survived in South African politics for 50 years, so I'm an optimist, and I remain an optimist about both the DA and about South Africa.
Douglas Gibson, former chairperson of the Federal Council of the DA, thank you so much for your time.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, there you have it. Douglas Gibson, the confident and adamant that things will turn out for the better for the DA come Sunday when that Congress, that meeting actually wraps up, with a lot of expectation, warning us now as the media not to be too exaggerating in as far as what we can expect there is concerned. But for now, it's back to you in studio in Auckland Park.